I wanna try and take in all the highs, embrace them for more than a moment's time. I want you, please don't move when I push you away. I know I contradict myself some days, but will you ride the lows with me?
Welcome to Mental Health News Radio. I am your host, Kristen Sunanta Walker. Our goal is to help discussions about mental health be a regular part of your daily life, no different than discussions about physical health. Mental illness can be a topic of discussion under the umbrella of mental health, along with so many other topics. This show is the original program on mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com. Our network of shows are played in over 180 countries and cover more topics under that umbrella than you can possibly imagine. We were talking about mental health long before it became cool and popular to talk about, and thank goodness it has become so popular. We have incredible guests, advocates, patients, experts, people. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy our intro music, a song named Lows, written by Aubrey Toon. You can find her music at www.aubreytoone.com.
That night when I started praying, I cried, will you ride the lows with me? Will you ride the lows with me? When I'm down, my vision gets blurry.
Stephanie, thank you so much for coming on the show.
What an honor. And truly, I just want to reiterate what I said before we were on.
We had a little chat before we...
Yeah, we had a little chat because I think what you've created, and I just want to, no, truly, because I didn't have this when I was going through this, and to have a place, a safe place where listeners can learn so much and understand so much from so many different sides. Incredible. Thank you for having me. What a gift of service you are, my dear.
Well, same to you. It's not an easy topic. Please tell our listeners about your book, Why Do We Stay? And please tell them why you did the very brave thing and write about this, because it's enough to just go through it and come out the other side, but then to actually write about it and put it out there and put your face on it and your career attached, I know it's not attached, but like you're out there with what you do, and you're a beautiful singer and songwriter. And that's a lot with this kind of topic. So what made you say, I'm going to do this?
Wow. Well, yes. So I'm going to take you back to a few dates. I tend to do things chronologically in my brain because it keeps me on my track of, so I don't become a tangentile. And if I do, you just rein me in. So yes, singer, songwriter. I've, been speaking my life through my music for years and years and years, but this was a subject that I never touched. And the subject in which I'm speaking of is I was in a relationship with a man. I'm going to take you back to January 28th of 2009. I was raising his daughter with him. I was building a life with him. I thought this was my forever. And he was a pilot by, he had a little plane. He would go fly every now and then. And on that particular Wednesday, he died in a plane crash.
Wow.
And I got the call that there had been an accident. I didn't know yet that he was gone. I put his daughter in the car. I drove to that airport as fast as I could because the plane crashed at the airport where he took off, Santa Monica Airport. And I just, my mama sense went to get this daughter to her father.
Yeah.
I could think about. And he had already passed. He passed on impact. But they didn't tell me that. They wanted me to get there, obviously, safely. And so when we got there, we learned that he was no longer with us. I had to call his mother. That was a hard phone call.
I bet.
I had to call his daughter's mom. That was brutal. It was just other levels. Anyone that's experienced tragic grief, it's just there's grief period. But when it comes like out of nowhere. It's debilitating. And so I immediately went into, obviously shock and adrenaline and what do I do next? And grief. It's just this hodgepodge of emotions.
Yeah.
And as the days got closer, we had a public memorial for him at the Santa Monica airport 5 days after. So this is now that following Sunday. And that day I learned I wasn't the only woman.
Mm.
And that was then confirmed that night by one of my friends who had met a woman that introduced herself as his girlfriend at the memorial. And so I went from grief to betrayal. If you can even call those 5 days grieving, I don't even know what that really was. And betrayal, it was immediate. Nothing about me could grieve any further than that because I was so angry. Betrayal, not believing anyone. I lost trust in everyone. I lost faith in everyone because everything essentially was a lie, except my love for him and my love for his daughter.
Mm.
And so, I fight my way through it. I say I'm fine. I'm just going to get over this like I was told to. I'm just going to move on like I was told to, and shut down those emotions as best I could, which we can think we do, but we don't. They just grow. Actually, they just get bigger. And I then fell into another toxic relationship about 9 months later. And I hadn't done the work. One of my my hopes and goals is that as I share this story, that if there's anyone listening who is delaying their healing, man, I wish I wouldn't have. And I wish I would have known how powerful grief counseling is, how powerful getting into the muck
Right.
is. It is so powerful. It is awful. It is hard. But the other side is only by means of getting through.
Yeah.
And
grief is the important relationship.
really is.
Not
And
the other dude.
it becomes a strange friend, it
Yeah.
becomes it's like, I don't want you here, but you're not going to leave. So we're just going to have to get really comfortable with each other.
Yeah.
Because it will, that's one thing. Now we're looking at, 15 years later, I look at grief with a whole different, I look at it now with a whole lot of healing. And there's so many lessons that I've now learned through the process of processing that you just don't know until you're in it. And
Right.
it's impossible for someone to say how you should experience something that they've never experienced. So that was one of the really beautiful parts of my grief counseling, which was both singular one-on-one and also group setting, to not feel alone, even though you didn't know anyone's last names. And also to know that everyone in that room knew the feeling of grief, the experience of grief, if it was quick and tragic or if it was years of, losing someone slowly. So it was the wildest, strangest, I call it a strange club that I've ever been a part of. And yet it's given me great empathy for others. So there's always the lesson in everything. So as that toxic relationship number 2 persisted, I discovered that he was also cheating on me, and then I took into my own hands my own self and said, I don't want to feel this pain anymore, and was willing to, I'm not going to say kill myself, because I don't know that I was there in my mind.
Maybe some ideation, some.
I didn't want to hurt anymore. The pain was so excruciating. And because I'd never handled the first relationship, I've never healed from the first toxic relationship. So that carried over. All that pain carried over. I didn't get like a clean card when I met toxic number 2. It all carried. So by the time that I learned of his indiscretions, it just had compounded to a place of, well, I'm the common denominator. I'm the one making these choices. I'm done. and I don't want to feel this pain anymore. And that night was one of the hardest nights to write about in the book. And I do go there because it just breaks my heart for that younger me, that pain was at that place where I don't know if I drank the entire handle of vodka, but it was really close, and I'm not a very big person. So, I don't know that any big person could handle that either.
Right.
But it was one of those really just devastating moments where, other people then had to be involved, and that also was, there's so much shame and embarrassment that comes with that. So I start navigating, and it wasn't, and when I say navigating, like going to emotional rehab, my grief can't, anything I could do to
Right.
get myself out of, where I was. And, I get out of toxic relationship number 2. I'm like, okay, I think I'm getting it together. And I end up meeting my future husband. And he was completely opposite of these other men. There was no chaos, there was no drama, there was no super highs and super lows. It was just consistent and solid. And it felt foreign, felt very foreign. And it was very hard to trust again. And so, now I'm like, well, I must be healthy now because I'm in a healthy relationship.
Right.
And he is such a kind man and patient, and also knows that you can't get anyone to where they need to go faster. And so I think if you were to ask him, he would say, he knew that there was still some more healing to do, but he also knew that telling me I needed to heal probably wasn't going to get me there faster.
Right.
So it wasn't until April of 21, this young little girl that was 12 when her father died, reached out. Now she's in her 20s at the time, and she just actually today turned 28.
Wow.
And we've stayed close this whole time, which is amazing. She reached out and asked me if I'd be a part of her college thesis.
Hmm.
And her college thesis is about her dad. And I'm like, okay, all right, I'll find something that I can say that will be
Appropriate or respectful.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, it's still her father, right? Like that's
Conundrum. Yes, absolutely.
yeah, it's still her dad. And that was always important to me, even after he passed and after I learned everything. I am and was very protective of her. And that's when she told me that she was not going to keep his secrets anymore. And she began painting her way through her healing.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, oh, wait, what? Oh, we're doing this now.
Yeah.
We're doing this. And what she showed me was such courage. And when she said these things to me, I was like, I don't have to protect this little girl anymore. She's not a little girl. She's a grown woman, and she's learning how to heal through healing, through her art, and through communicating it in a way that, is just opening up her world to wanting to help other kids that are going through these traumas. And so then I was like, well, wait a minute, what do I do? Well, I sing, I write music, I perform, and I've never put my music and all these emotions in the same place. And so I made the commitment to myself to write an album. And if it was only for me, if no one ever heard it, at least I would have it out of my body. I don't know how you feel, but I just feel so strongly that we're just not meant to keep it inside. And that keeping it inside, I have found, makes me ill, makes me sick.
Absolutely.
And it usually comes in the form of, for me, it's strep throat, which is really interesting. Is like my communication device goes down.
Yeah, exactly.
My musical device goes down when I don't get it out. And, music is such a powerful tool. And it, now looking back, it's shocking that I didn't try to do that sooner, but I really couldn't. It just wouldn't. I would try. If I sat down to write a song about it, I would just shut down. And so I went to Montana, where I'm from, with one of my dear friends and songwriters that I trust immensely, and knew that she could handle not only the content of the music, but also the content of my emotions, because I had no idea what was about to happen. You know, there was probably going to be some anger, some everything was going to be wide open. And so I knew that it was safe with her. And I think that's such a big part of, you know, when we're sharing our feelings and emotions, it takes a lot of trust. And a lot of people can, you know, turn what we say into weapons and weaponize it. So to be in that protected space is very important. And we ended up writing what now is my album called On the Edge. And I didn't know if it was going to be anything, but I played it for my husband first. And I said, "Can you listen to this like you're not my husband?" He goes, "No." No,
Right, exactly. What are you asking me to do here?
no, I cannot,
Can
but
I
I will.
cut off my leg and
Yeah,
still run a race? I
right.
don't
But
know.
I will let you know what I think with all my heart. And so he did. And he just said, "I think this could help people." And as I played it for my team, that was kind of, okay, this wasn't just for me. Maybe this is a conversation we can take and really help people. Which seemed like a very daunting task, because it's not a surface conversation. This is not like a how's the weather? Oh, it's sunny. It's like if we're going to get into it, we're going to get into it, right?
Right.
And there's so many layers to the conversation, because it's more than just a tragic accident. You have um, layers of betrayal, and then living in what you think is true, and then finding out everything is a lie is I just don't think we're made for it. You know, a lot of people have to go through it, but I don't think we're made for it.
Right.
We've found a way to protect ourselves, right? Because the brain sure protects itself when it goes through trauma. And I experienced that with writing the book. So I'll get to the point of your question. I'm taking the long road, but the road is important.
That's okay.
And so, you know, we played the songs for Eden. She feels confident about it. She also asks, like, "Why aren't you more mad?" And I go, "Well, I've been mad for a long time." And it just felt like it was ready and right. And so we put the album out in November of 22. And Kristen, what was a shockwave to me was how many people had been through post-mortem
Yep.
betrayal. And it just made me it just makes me hurt when I think about that, and also makes me uh, recognize that what I'm doing is purposeful, and the hope of helping people. There are people that relate to this story, because it kind of feels so stranger than fiction. And so as we put out this music and I start, you know, learning of others, and you know, it's both women and men. And I had men that started reaching out, you know, going, was I this way to this relationship? And it made them start doing kind of this self-evaluation of like, was I mistreating someone even beknownst to me of how by these actions? It was super interesting.
Yeah.
And that led to doing a podcast about the music to really give people the full scope of the story, because it's, you know, a 3-minute song. You can get lost in melodies or a lyric and then kind of start interpreting it. You know, we all do that with music. It's just the power of music. But when I was able to speak to the songs and the story, then it kind of created a whole bigger conversation. And you have to remember, I've been in the entertainment industry for a really long time, and I never shared this. So I'm Stephanie Quayle, this jovial, happy, like, go get him, like, you got this kind of girl and woman. And so I kind of shocked a lot of people's systems that were close to me, because they didn't know.
Wow.
And that's what then led to, you know, I always had thought there was a book there to write about. I thought it
Yeah.
was going to be more of a memoir. And when we started, you know, when HarperCollins and I started working together and collaborating on the book, we discussed that, what if we turn this into a tool? What if we made this a guide? What if your story is the story, because the story is the story, and then we bring in an expert that can speak to what you missed, that can
Right.
speak to these terms that I honestly didn't even know at the
Right.
time,
Like nobody
right?
knows, not everybody knows what word salad
Oh,
is, what gaslighting is, what
right. Love
blah,
bombing.
blah, blah, love,
Thought that was like, oh, this is great.
or narcissistic abuse. People are like, what's
Yeah,
that? Oh, let me tell you.
yeah.
Google it.
And
Google
there's
it.
so
You'll find
much
out a bunch.
there, so much there. And so that's how we've presented this book, Why Do We Stay? It's my story where I go to all the places, and what I also really want people to take away is it is a story of hope, because I I I got through the pain by doing the work and doing the healing that takes the time it takes. My hope is it doesn't take anyone else as long as it took me. But that the healing comes faster and that the story can truncate that, right? So those, if I had had this book, I think about that. I think about your whole platform, like that access to that information. Would I have adjusted my own lens to see what was in front of me versus what I was trying to potentialize into this, you know, other thing, which it wasn't, and that's really the goal of the book, is that it shows it, it's on the page, it's black and white. It comes with the expert saying this is what this is, which has also been very validating for me as well, right? Because I think a lot of times when you're in it, there is so much embarrassment and shame that you stayed too long, or people go, well, you're smarter than that, which is one of my least favorite phrases.
Oh,
Yeah, yep.
oh
And
boy.
yeah, yeah.
Or you're better than that.
Oh
Really?
gosh,
Please.
yeah,
And
yeah,
who are you that just said this to me?
yeah. And it's interesting how we're taught that sticks and stones will break our bones, but words will never hurt us. That is such a bunch of baloney, because I can remember words like I can
Yeah,
remember words from
you're a
when I was 4.
songwriter. You remember
Yeah,
the words. Yes.
yeah, man. I have never
I'm
had a
gonna put
broken
it in
bone,
a song, and there you
but
go.
yeah, it's just a different thing. So yeah, the words are so powerful,
Yeah.
and I'm excited. I'm nervous, I'm not gonna lie. I am very nervous to expose this much of me in such, a black and white way. There's no real room for interpretation like there is with a song. Like, this is on
Right.
the page, these are my words, this is my life experience, and I just want people to get time back. And if this book creates that for them, that's the gift.
What's so nice is that you do have, you write about what you're going to write about in the chapter, and then you have, I don't know what you'd call it, an index, or I don't know what that's called, where it's Dr. Keith Campbell, right? That's
Right,
going in and
right.
giving, which is one, it's so awesome that, so you
Mm,
have a reference to what you were just reading about. So here's your personal story, and here's a reference, and then the next chapter, and it goes on like that. But what's so fascinating to me is, and I don't know how you find this being on this journey, so many victims, even from forever ago, going back, 10 years or so, for me, people would come in and they just got out of one of these relationships, and they're like, we got to tell people, we have to tell people about this. Nobody knows about this. That's what it was like then. But
right,
now, right now in 2024, that is not necessarily the case anymore. People do know about this because we've all been talking. But
right,
back then it was some people in little pods knew
right.
about this stuff, but it was still so shamed, and you were
Yeah,
so shamed. I mean, the amount of, oh,
yeah.
horror emails I got for even talking to people was disturbing. So, I feel like how fabulous that we are in this place now,
Um,
where gaslighting is like a regular household word.
Right. And I think too, everything, I don't really understand why anyone thinks that they could get away with lying right now. Like, with the amount of access to social media, Google. I mean, back in 2009 when I think it was MySpace and
Right.
emails and dot
It's
coms. So, my criminal investigation, that I became a criminal investigator right after, right? I was like, okay, I've got to know everything. And I
right.
went to the ends of the earth to try to get information, to try to understand. And, you know, this web was so messy and so intricate that it was like, how do I make this make sense? And, it's funny now, this many years later, when something doesn't feel right, when someone says something that makes me cock my head sideways, when my gut goes, that doesn't add up.
Yeah.
I don't, I, it, I don't, I don't search for answers anymore. I trust myself and I walk away.
I know that's so weird. It takes a while for that not to feel weird, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
It,
It's
it
like
just
we have to
does.
validate ourselves about our feelings.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
like, okay, if I
Right.
just have proof, right? I just need the proof. Hmm.
Yeah, we get so used to, and we're taught. I mean, I talked about this with someone just the other day. Look at the movies. I mean, I'm 54, so my movie references are like, 16 Candles and, The Brat Pack and all those movies. And I mean, in those movies, the way that women were treated was all about these kinds of toxic relationships. And yet that was supposed to be sexy
Right.
and normal to want to be grabbed and thrown over your shoulder and all this craziness that is not okay today. It never was okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really
It's
interesting that you
bizarre.
say that because, I grew up with very strong independent parents. Now they did get divorced at a very young age. I think I was 3. And my mom remarried a veterinarian with a farm. And so we were just work ethic driven people,
Yeah.
'cause the farm never sleeps and my dad's an entrepreneur. So like, it's just,
Yeah.
there's such a joy with work, right? It's like, it was just this earning, earning, like you earned your horseback ride, right? Like
Yeah.
you had to like shovel a lot of manure, but you knew at the end of that, you got to ride your horse. And so it was just, it was very, I'm also one of those types of people. I just love the challenge of work. I just love it. And good thing I'm in the strangest business called the entertainment business, where everything is weird and takes long.
Yeah, and, wow, what a bit I don't know if you don't wanna go there, we don't have to. I just always think whenever I talk to someone, because I had my own little dalliance into the entertainment
Yeah.
industry with mental health, and it was absolutely the worst. I will never, ever do that again.
Yeah.
I'm not built for that. But I recently found out I'm also on the autism spectrum. So that explains a lot to me, and a lot to me why so many people have found that I would be so much fun to mess about with, because there are
Mhm.
things that take me longer to get. Uh,
Yeah.
so what was interesting to me in delving into that world side was how many narcissists and
Mm.
psychopaths and
Mhm.
sociopaths are in the entertainment industry, and just the sheer volume of that was like, "I'm out."
It's deafening. I moved to Los Angeles. I was 19, 19. Yeah, because I was like 18 or 19 years old. And I remember very early on being in a situation where, uh, I've never told this story. Um,
Mm.
but I think it's important from the standpoint of 3 parts. Toxicity and narcissism, it doesn't just happen in romantic relationships.
Yeah,
It happens in
absolutely.
friendships, it happens in family ships, and I don't know if you call them family ships, it happens in families, and it happens in business.
Coworkers,
Yeah,
whatever. Yep, yep.
absolutely. And, I'm this new kid on the block, starry-eyed, moved to LA to sing my little country songs, and I'm from Montana, so West Coast country was very much a thing I grew up knowing about, and
Yeah.
so it didn't seem like Nashville was the only option. It was definitely an option down the road. And I will never forget, because I just had this happen recently where the traumatic memory came back. And I had an agent that took me to meet a man that wanted that he had presented to me like, this man wants to invest in your music. And I said, "Oh, wow," I'm like brand new. I'm like, of
Right,
course I
exactly.
wanna
Yes, to
course I want it. This
everything.
is that easy. You're here
I'm
for this short amount of
open,
time. It just all
please,
works out. Yes.
welcome,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, oh my gosh, my sweet little 19-year-old Montana self.
You
And
hug her now, but yes.
oh gosh, yes. I just, you know what? I say every day to her, I'm like, I will never let any of this happen to you again.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's
Mm,
that's the that's the beauty of wisdom,
that
right?
just gave me
And
chills up the back of my neck, yes, when you were
yeah.
that,
Oh
like,
man.
"I will protect
Mm.
you, me."
Yes. Yeah, it's potent, really powerful. And uh so I walk into this guy's, I mean, the visual of it is horrendous. I won't get into the details, but it's a penthouse, and I'm there with my agent, who's a man. And this guy's not wearing a lot of clothing. There are a lot of women in the room not wearing a lot of clothing. I'm very confused by what I just walked into.
Yeah.
And that man, I don't even know if I handed him my little CD. He grabs me by my hair, pulls it back,
Yeah.
grabs himself, and says $100,000.
I think I just bought varped. I just made up a new thing. It's called varping. It's when you burp and vomit in your mouth over something awful. So there we go.
And I think one of the things that happens in those moments, it's so startling and so, emotionally paralyzing, you just can't fathom. It's like you're really in a moment like that. Now, fortunately, I am a pretty strong-willed Montanan, and so I was not happy about that, and I got out of there as quickly as I could, and obviously never worked with that agent again. And I'm like 19.
Yeah.
A baby. And then cut to, I moved to Nashville and I have someone introducing me to an investor. And he has the audacity to pull my hair back to see if my hair was real in public, in a public space where we're meeting for the very first time about business.
Yep.
And it rocked my brain. I am a strong person. I don't let people mess with me. And here is almost an exact action 10 years later out of nowhere. And I felt so much shame, like, well, I must have done something
Right.
that it even makes me uncomfortable to talk about it because I should know better.
Mm.
And it's so interesting. It's so interesting. So in business, it can happen anywhere.
Yeah, and I think we have been a society of, I mean, I don't think, I know that we have been a society of victim blaming and victim shaming because that has made it, that's why everybody's been able to get away with this crap for so long, is because that is the culture. Don't you dare say anything because then it's going to be your fault anyway. So
Yeah.
now we're moving out of that. It still happens,
Sure.
obviously, especially on social media, but but there is language now. There are people that will come in and stick up for you and be like, wait a minute, that's called victim shaming and blaming, and that is not okay. And I would just say to listeners, those things where people come at you, you are not doing anything wrong. Like, these things just happen.
Right.
And they can happen to anyone. And if you hear any person, like I've heard some people, women mostly, say, well, I would never let that happen to me, blah, blah, blah. And they're going to that judgment place. And that, don't try not to be angry with them. I've been in that place too. It's a way to combat the shaming you're going to get. That person is not trying to say that they're better because they wouldn't let it happen. Just to let people tell their story, how they're going to tell it. And we all come to these awarenesses of our journey. Time.
Yeah, it's really something. It's really when I took my jaunt to what I call emotional rehab, where I went and worked with these psychologists for, I think it was about 6 days, and it was just all day, every day.
Good for you.
Oh, it was awesome. It was on as I was trying to make my exit from toxic number 2. And his name is Prince in the book, and I do not mean Prince as in the musician. I mean it in very different connotations. And and there are some little moments in there that are tongue in cheek, because I do like to sometimes make light of hard things to make hard things light. And that's just the songwriter in me, the turn of phrase, the little, the cheekiness of it, because it also is just so beyond sometimes comprehension that if we don't laugh, we will cry. Which crying's good too. I did a lot of that.
Oh my God.
Still do. Well, I don't know if you've had this conversation, and I've really, especially with just having this kind of memory come back of that, that time with those men with pulling my hair, uh, guilt is, man, I made a mistake.
Yeah.
But when it converts to shame and
I
it's,
am a mistake.
I am a mistake. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Sorry.
that was a big, big light bulb aha moment when I went and spent all that time with those psychologists, just understanding something. So what just a change of what? A couple words. I am a mistake. I made a mistake. I mean, a one word
Yeah.
difference. And how powerful that is and the way it makes you feel.
Absolutely. That's why, sticks and stones. No, no, no. Please, everybody, don't tell that fable to your kids. Don't say that saying. It's not true. Words hurt worse than anything. I don't want to ever be punched in the face. I've been hit in the face by accident, just
Yeah.
throughout my life, somebody, whatever. That is far easier to deal with than the stuff that happens from words, and this thing about shaming people because they're upset over the things that are said to them online or in person or what have you. That's purposefully shaming. I always look at it like, don't become someone out of your pain that, you've been victimized and abused. And it's important to own that. Yes, you were victimized. You were a victim. There is nothing wrong with being a victim. Just don't stay there forever, which is very hard, but feel bad. Words freaking hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to honor our feelings. That's, there's, the way I grew up is like, get back in the saddle, dust yourself
Yeah.
off, and all those things are great things for sure. Like there is, it's like resiliency and that's beautiful and perseverance, beautiful. And also the most beautiful thing is not avoiding yourself.
Yeah, and I mean, you're an artist, okay? So I know that there are artists out there that are, completely narcissistic and they don't care about anybody but their own, uh, you know, their own empathy for themselves, and that's all well and good. But for the most part, the creative arts attracts very sensitive people.
Right.
And so it's kind of weird how the way that an entertainment industry it is so polarized.
Mm-hmm.
Because you
It
have
is.
the yous that are sharing from the depths of your soul and your feelings, and you're so able to be there and emote and express yourself, which is takes so much strength and bravery. And then you have to walk around with that in a pool with a bunch of sharks.
It is really something. And to your point, what I'm finding, because I don't think the work ever stops,
No.
right? I think in my case, like I feel like I've done a lot of work and now I'm like, all right, let's level up. Let's do more, And I'm really not fascinated, like, oh, this is great, but I'm curious as why this memory from when I was 19 and 29, specifically about this action, right? It was a physical action against me that made
Yeah.
me feel not only very vulnerable, but unsafe, like why it came up and why it was, triggered. And I'm super fascinated by how just the brain, to me, I'm like, okay, now my brain can go, hey, by the way, we have this little trauma we need to
Work
like
on
check
it.
in on and work through. And it's
Yeah.
really interesting. It's like as we grow and get stronger in our own self-worth and that recognition of our stuff, right? Because we all have our stuff.
Yeah.
When we're able to really look at ourselves and love all the stuff that's not great, I think that's like, okay, well, the bad people are going to be bad and
Yep.
they're going to keep doing what they do. And hopefully they don't, but I would rather err on the side of let's all get stronger by doing the work, doing the hard stuff. And for those that choose to be bad, well, they're not going to waste their time on strong people because they're going to go to someone else.
That's true. My friend Stella is the queen of dodging literally anybody even remotely leaning towards malignant narcissism and above that, right? Or above, below that is probably a better description. But anyway, anyone that leans that way, they see her and they run. Okay.
Yeah.
They run, whatever it is. And I'm like, can you just, whatever you, can I have an essence of you? And I finally got it. And she
Yeah.
just, the way she was raised and what have you, but she has mega other problems. And she'll hear this and laugh hysterically because we talked for 4 hours last night
Hi,
about this
Stella.
thing. But she's like, yeah, I don't have that problem, Kristen, but I have all these others. And I was like, okay, I see it. Okay, we're good. I don't feel bad anymore about me being susceptible to these kind of people because I don't want your problems.
Well, we're right. It's like we all have so much
Yeah.
we're managing internally. And, you're creating this incredible safe space where it can get exposed in a way where if someone hears one thing that puts them in a position of, okay, I've got to get myself to safety. I think that was one of the biggest things for me with the album was I had someone reach out and she was in danger.
Yeah.
And it was like, you don't wait, you run. And here are 5 phone numbers of organizations that have the skills and the knowledge and the expertise of what to do next. I don't have those. That's not my expertise, but I will absolutely get them for you and
Right.
find the best next step. And that's, I think when we're able to tell our stories and expose them fully with full disclosure. Is that the right way of saying that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Absolutely.
being able to really, share it all. Now, of course, there's certain names I protected in the book, and certain things I left out because it didn't serve the reader,
Right.
and I really want the reader to walk away with, okay, this is a book that I have as a reference, as a tool, as a friend, as a guide, and just somewhere to go.
And
And
yeah.
without the pressure of having someone else like, hold you to, like I said, a lot of times when we confide in those that we care about, it can get weaponized.
Yeah. Yeah. And for sure. And sometimes, I think we get a big dose, especially when we're younger and we're more altruistic and we walk around open. I had a shaman walk up to me at a thing and go, honey, I think I was 25. She said, you need to learn how to close all that up. I'm scared for you
Oh, wow.
around in the world that you're just so open to everybody. You're just so like, you need to learn about boundaries.
Wow.
And I'm like, well, that wasn't allowed in my house. So that's a whole other thing. But, there are
Yeah.
a lot of people that, especially women, you are told, or not so much today, thank goodness, but in
Yeah.
the past, that boundaries will make you undesirable.
Yeah, right? Isn't that is it's such a different time, and what is exciting, I'm gonna be 45 this fall, and I've seen a big transition.
Yeah.
Just especially, I'm in a fishbowl of country music and females in country music, and when I was first on the radio, I was the only female independent artist. I have my own label, so I was kinda like this little they didn't have there weren't any others.
Right.
And the conversations that happened, uh, through my, growing up in the industry and seeing a lot of bad behavior, and I would just circumvent it, right? I would if a man of power or an executive would start like, if I had that kind of sense, like, "Oh, he's gonna do something,"
Mhm.
and I would immediately start talking about "Oh, you're married. Oh, cool. Do you have a daughter? Oh, what's your daughter?" And I would
Yeah.
immediately just reverse the conversation and try to get it under control in that short amount of time, right? Because there wasn't a lot of time in a lot of those conversations. But I didn't ever want to be in that position I was when I was 19 or when I was 29, where I didn't have control over myself in that situation,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, you were walking around with an empty or close to empty tool bag, and the tool bag is what you got out of those relationships.
Yeah.
Oh, now I walk around with a utility
Yeah.
belt and it's
Yeah.
full of tools. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And now I look at these young women coming up that are in, the age I was when I was in my first toxic relationship, or when I, first met that person, early 20s. A lot of these young people aren't going to experience that because there is now a penalty, right?
Yes.
There is from being penalized by the press, the public, for different wrongdoings. And also there's legal things in place that weren't there then.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I saw someone get assaulted, a woman get assaulted at a park I was at a week ago. And she was like, I think I shouldn't, it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, she went right into the hole and she was my
Yeah.
age. So she, she's trying to get with the time that we are in now. And I just kept saying to her, that was assault. It really was assault. I
Yeah.
saw the whole thing.
Yeah.
You didn't do anything to deserve that.
Yeah.
Try not to go to where I see it. And
You
I
can
kept
see
making
it.
her look at me like, I see it in your eyes. You are right now telling yourself, and your body is, everything about you is trying to convince you that you are the one in the wrong.
Mm.
And you're not. So I'm here with you. I said, but I respect what you want. If you don't want me to
Yeah,
call the
of
police, I
course.
won't. And we did call the police. And I said, just watch what they do, because you never know, if
Yeah.
you are, if that particular department of police is up with what is illegal now.
Yeah.
And they were wonderful. Ma'am, that was assault.
Yeah.
And
And
I was like,
also,
oh,
I look at it like, if, in the event that, sometimes where I've been like, that wasn't that big a deal. I'm like, but if I don't report this,
yes, they'll do it again.
then
Somebody else.
then there's no record.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then if this happens to someone else or to me again, then how am I, like, that's just not, like, how can I say I want to protect myself and others if I don't actually protect myself and others?
Yeah, I think, the whole Karen thing, while it's
Oh, yeah.
interesting in some ways and it's good in some ways, because there are just grossly entitled people walking around,
Yeah.
but in some ways, because it's just the sheer volume of men that use that term, I sometimes think, I think we're going a little too far with that, because sometimes you're just shaming someone for stating what just happened.
Well, it kind of became the new crazy, right? So I talk
Exactly.
about this, in my book, of being, minimized to
Yep.
crazy and insecure when I would question anything. And I think you're right. I mean, I think there's a way of courageously confronting people without having to be awful, uh,
Absolutely.
and doing things in a respectful way, and how we would hope we would be treated if that ever table was turned. Uh, I do think that it's very easy for anyone to just put someone in a box, right? If
Yep.
they like, and then it creates immediate dismissiveness. And yeah, I was one of the things, like, you can call me anything, anything, just don't call me crazy. Because for me, it is such a trigger. Not now, but then it was like coming out of, two toxic relationships where,
That's what you were told subconsciously
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
consciously.
And these and honestly, I started to wonder if maybe I was.
Of
I I
course.
I mean, 1,000%, I'm like, "Well, man, what is wrong with, like, what am I missing here?" And yeah, no, I'm not I honestly, when anyone refers to someone else as crazy, and I don't mean like in a cute way, okay? I don't mean like, "Oh, you're so crazy." I'm not talking about that. I'm
Right.
talking about when someone is like, No, no, that person's crazy," statement, hard stop, and don't discuss it anymore. That's where I usually look to the person who's saying that and go, "Well, let's break that down a little bit."
Right.
Now you have my curiosity. Are they in a mental institution? Are they, medically, uh are like, what are we talking about here? And usually, you get to the unravelment of something and someone just like hurt someone's feelings or made them angry, or it's much less than what that word states. But what that word does is it puts you this person is dismissed.
Absolutely. And
Mm.
not just the words out of their mouth. It's the dismissal of your entire being.
Right.
You are
Right.
you just yeah, I had someone say, and I was so proud of her in a group therapy thing, someone say, "So basically what you're saying is," she was doing the thing where you have the empty chair, and
Mm.
in the chair was the abusive person,
Right.
and it was so fascinating to watch this, and she's written about it, so I'm not, like, even though I'm not saying her name, I'm not divulging anything she hasn't
Got
already
it. Got it.
about, but she's what was so fascinating was to watch her realize, "Oh, that's what you're trying to do.
Mhm.
You're trying to keep me quiet.
Yeah.
You're trying to ma you don't want me to just you don't even want me to just be quiet. You just want me to not be here." So she confronted the chair and said, "So basically what you're saying is you think that I deserve to just not exist."
Wow. Mm.
And it was so empowering because she was like, "Well, I do exist." And then there was a whole beating up the chair, and it was fantastic.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's tough to, like, reclaim yourself, especially when you're just still trying to figure out who the heck you are.
Yeah, and then from reclaiming, I think that to be in a place of forgiveness. That's been one
Yeah.
of the newest adventures for me in these last couple years is finding my way to forgiveness. And I think it was, I think I thought I might had, but I hadn't.
Yeah,
Forget. You know,
when you
like you're like,
do.
"Ah, did I?" And it's like, "No, no, no,
Yes.
you did not." And when I did, all forgiveness does is it and I say that because it's so simple, but we complicate the
Yep.
out of it, is it gives you peace back. The person who forgives gets the peace.
If they want it.
If
Sometimes
they
they
Yeah.
don't, sometimes
Yeah,
they
in my
don't.
I'll say in my case, like, me forgiving toxic 1 and toxic 2 gave me back something that I don't know that I can quite identify, but I call it peace.
Yeah, it's
And
really for you, and
yeah,
you can't really get that until you really forgive, and all that stuff that gets put on you, guilt and shame and whatever attached to forgiveness, that's
yeah,
also all of that is another dark way of getting you to be quiet, 'cause forgiveness truly is. I mean, I finally just this year forgave my biological father, and when I got this autism diagnosis, I forgave him. I really truly forgive him, and I will never tell him that because I don't even know where he is, but it isn't about him. It was
right.
about,
It's a release for you,
yeah, like, okay, this man clearly was on the autism spectrum, and in a time when that was not
a conversation at
a
all.
conversation to talk about, and did these abusive things to me and set me up for a world of hurt, and but how would I be if I wasn't able to figure out a key part of myself, how repressed, and what would those repressions turn into? Would they turn into something ugly? You don't know. So anyway, just yeah, the
No,
for
but what you're saying is so powerful because in that moment of deciding to forgive, you chose to do that.
yep, it's your choice. Exactly.
And I think that's one of the things that we have no control over other people. We're never really going to be able to control other people.
Exactly.
It's so much control when we choose to about ourselves. And I think that only comes with like, man, go to the places that scare you the most. In my case, that's what I did. And writing the book was like, I remember I'd have to get up and just step away. And
Yeah.
there were a couple moments in the book that in the first part about Paula where I was just like this, and I had to check myself. I had to call my mom, I had to call my stepmom and be like, okay, this really happened. And they're like, yeah. And and I think that because I avoided so much for so long, the recognizing the trauma to the extent of what really happened, I never really honored that, if that makes sense. I
Totally. Absolutely.
never gave any like, like when like hugging my younger self and being like, "No, this was really bad.
Yeah.
This was really bad. This was really bad." And it was such a man. if you want to learn about yourself, write a book. It really does so much. Even if you never publish it, just shows so much about, I love journaling, and I think that's has really helped me not only with writing the book because it got me in that daily rhythm, but it's just a place to put it.
Absolutely. It's a
Get
place to get
every
it out of you, and
yes.
you have to remember, and listeners, you've heard me say this, but it's so true. If you are this wide open, loving, empathetic, highly sensitive person, which most people in the creative arts are, you can unwittingly and unwillingly become a waste receptacle for other people's toxic shame. And the act of forgiveness, which is just for you. You don't
Mhm.
even need to tell that person that you forgive them. It's not about that. It's about you. That takes all their shame out of your receptacle and puts it back in theirs where it belongs so that you have more room to heal.
Yes.
Kind of
And
neat.
the truth is such a gift,
Yeah.
and I think it's, when we're able to own, like me owning my own story and narrative doesn't let other people get to decide how my story is or ends.
Right.
And it was one of the things my dad was when I first was talking about the book, my dad's like, "Why would you want to go back?" And I said, "Dad, I want to go back so I can go forward."
Yeah. Ooh, powerful. We could talk forever.
I know we have to do this again.
We will, we will. I know you're very
Love that.
busy. We will, because this is such important information. But for now, the book, listeners, is called Why Do We Stay? It's available everywhere on April 30th, correct?
Yes, exactly.
April 30th of this year, and people that listen to this 5 years from now, April 30th, 2024. So if you're listening and it's 2028, you can find the book. It's available. Get it. It's so good. There's an audiobook too, isn't there?
Yes, there is. Woo!
Okay. We didn't even that. I want to do another show to talk about because that's a
Yes,
whole other experience.
would love to, yes.
Yeah, but go there, find it. It's such a good book, and listen to her music. Stephanie, please tell everybody where they can find out more about you.
Absolutely. StephanieQuayle.com is for all, tour dates and places I'll be. We're working on a lot of different activations to really have these conversations on the road, beyond the music and beyond the pages. So I'm super excited about that. And then social media, all the places,
Yeah.
all the places that we can be, I am. And music is everywhere as well. And I just appreciate you so much for sharing me.
Oh, absolutely. I'm proud of you. I'm not your mom, or and I'm not old enough to be your mom, but I say that in terms of I'm just proud of you for speaking out this way. And it's a big deal to
Thank
align your career with this kind of language. And I say that because I know
you.
personally that
Thank
it's a big deal. So my hat's off to you. I'm an admirer.
Oh, well, now we're friends.
Exactly. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And just hang on one second, listeners. We're going to do our little chat after, but we're going to say goodbye to you now. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next show.
But will you ride the low, low, lows with me? Will you ride the low, low, lows with me?
One thing you can always count on at Mental Health News Radio Network and my show is that there will always be dogs around. Why? They are natural healers, excellent for your mental health. The original therapy dog Miles has something to say in just a moment. For now, please check out all of our amazing shows at mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com and all your favorite podcast apps. Until next time, I'm Kristen Sonanta Walker, and thank you for listening.
Me tonight, and I can ride the low, low, lows with me. I can ride the low, low, lows with me till my vision clears up perfectly. I can ride the low, low, lows with me.
Good boy.